Okay, well, first off, Casey mentioned my name is Mike Allen. I'm with Credit Plus, and I've been working with Casey and Eric and a lot of you guys. It's funny. I probably recognize your voice more than I recognize, and your name more than I would recognize you in person, because we, lots of emails, lots of information we transmit back and forth, and we appreciate your business. You guys have been a great client, and it's exciting to watch your growth. So, with that being said, Casey and Tim asked me just to run through some scoring, just some kind of the credit basics 101. And so, some of this stuff may be remedial. So feel free to ask questions, comments. I've been in the business for 21 years. I owned a credit bureau for 10, and then it was eventually acquired by Credit Plus. It was up in Holiday, up in Salt Lake. And so I've been doing this a long time. I started, when I owned the business, it was like 3 people. And so we processed supplements. So you probably talked to Paulette and a lot of our customer service folks. I started that, eventually made, did everything, and wore many hats. So I've had a lot of experience here, and hopefully I can, just teach you a couple new things here, just, shed some light on something. So let's just get started here. And as we talked about on the first slide here, we're gonna just kind of go through the basics of the credit report. Obviously we all know there's 3 credit bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Experian actually used to be called TRW back in the old days. And basically a credit score is just an interpretation of the score as it is as of this second. So for some of those, you probably have witnessed Trended Data was released last year, and Trended Data basically would look back for Equifax and TransUnion. It would look back 24 months, and it would show the minimum payment required, the actual payment made, and the actual balance. So you could tell if somebody was a transactor or a revolver. Revolver is somebody that just pays the minimum payment. The balance, pretty much stays the same. The transactor is somebody that, they pay the credit cards, they pay a lot of expenses, they pay it off each month. And so the Trended Data report will show that. And I'm not sure, and I'll show you an example of that later. Maybe you've come across, but I think you guys disabled that when we first released it, kind of suppressed it. It's a requirement for Fannie Mae that it's in the background, but it's just more data. So it's a trend of the credit. And actually, eventually, I think the credit score will be it'll be a trended score. So they'll basically be able to score your credit based on if you're a transactor or a revolver. So does that make sense? Okay. All right, so let's dive in. A lot of times you'll pull credit and you'll get a no-hit every once in a while. Each of the bureaus are somewhat different. Sometimes if you fat finger the entry or you leave off the name or misspell, this is the order that the bureaus look for the information. So you'd think they'd all be the same. I think they'd all start with a social. But 2 of them start with a social. Equifax starts with the name, and they finish up with a social. So that's why sometimes you get a no-hit, and their system's all different. And it's kind of like the credit score. You think this credit score would be consistent. They use their own algorithm they work with, Fair Isaac, and that's why the scores kind of vary. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Another nice feature that's in this slide deck is the credit report legend. And granted, I'm sure you guys have all looked at thousands of reports. And once you get used to and accustomed to a format, if we were to change, throw a fastball at you, curveball, and all of a sudden you're like, man, this looks totally different. But here's a legend, that helps you explain it. And this is another nice slide you may be able to, share with, some of your borrowers. Sometimes they have questions. They're trying to, understand their credit report and see how things are being reported. You'll notice, list the date reported, date open, and we'll talk about that, when we start talking about the rescoring, because that's very, very important. Even though, today we're in April, when they pull credit, a lot of the trade lines are, only reporting through March, February, January. They're always behind, and that's honestly why our company's in business, because we're trying to help provide a snapshot in real time of what the borrower's credit score, what their balances are, and to where you can have an accurate report to close the loan. All right, just some basic facts. Credit accounts, and this is FCRA data. They state, any account that's paid as agreed, it'll stay in your file for 10 years from the date last active. And any account that is not paid as agreed is 7 years. Same with collections. A lot of times you pull a report and you can see they have an old collection and they're like, I'm not paying that. It was an old medical bureau. They just disputed it. And so that date last active is what what the bureaus go by. Yes.
So Mike, I have a question. Sometimes in the collection accounts that have been dormant for a couple of years, but it still shows like an outstanding balance. I've heard that if a borrower goes in, we educate them to go in and fix that all of a sudden it's going to update the date of last activity, even though they've paid it off or done something, it makes their score go down.
Yes. Now, so when you say fix it, you mean pay it?
Yeah.
Pay it, yeah.
Or if there's a past due amount on it, that they all of a sudden, bring it current without, paying it all off or something.
Correct.
And so it's almost like better off that they just leave it alone.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, technically, you're right. Anytime they go in, if they contact the collection agency, just them calling is not going to cause any issue. But if they were to make a small payment, or if they were to dispute with the bureaus, if the bureaus were to update any information and send a request out to the collection agency, they would possibly update that date last active, and it would start the clock all over again. So, one thing, and you'll see it's in the notes here, always when you come to collections, tell them not to pay it until after closing, or if it's a condition of closing. A lot of investors, underwriters, maybe they don't like that, but if you can, follow that guideline, you won't run into problems, because it is, it's really screwed up the way the scores are. And actually, we're going to talk about the scores in a second. There's more up-to-date scores out there that Fair Eyes has come up with. It's just Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac haven't had time to test them, and because they do take into effect, some of the date last active. They can see that, and some of the new scores, when you pay a collection, they're talking about even deleting them off the credit bureau. So there's a lot of changes out there, but it's just you have to wait for the GSEs to basically authorize it.
Yep.
All right. Same with courthouse records. 7 years from the date of file, except the Chapter 7. There's 10 years from the date of file, and even I just ran into this week. We had a client had a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. It's been discharged. Well, the borrower, the client's borrower had that, and in the Chapter 13 they included about 15 debts. Well, a couple of them they didn't make it. Their trustee for some reason didn't make a payment to those debts, and since they were left off, they were not included in the bankruptcy in a Chapter 13. So, make sure when you're educating and working with your borrowers, you pay attention to what type of chapter of bankruptcy it is, and because even a lot of the investor guidelines vary depending on that as well. All right, another common question that comes up probably at least once or twice a month: divorce decrees. They do not supersede credit data. Even though the judge comes back and says, hey, this debt's the co-borrowers or the borrowers. We can document the trade lines and we can notate, but from as far as the standpoint, is disputing the credit, the actual creditor off the credit file, the divorce decree does not supersede. And a lot of times, your borrowers are just, you'll see where one person tries to, not pay a debt, because they're mad, and it ends up, hurting both parties.
So what you're saying is that even though the divorce decree says so-and-so has responsibility, as long as they were both on it originally, they both have, according to the credit bureau.
Exactly.
So the only way the borrower can do it is they have to close that account, the other one has to open up just a new one and then pay that loan.
Refinance it off, and which is, it's kind of a crazy day. You just, you understand, qualifying for a mortgage, that's pretty tricky. I mean, maybe for an auto loan, they could, the judge should say, hey, maybe you should pay it off, refinance off. I mean, but they don't understand. The judge will say, hey, financially responsible here, this is what you're legally responsible for, but as far as the credit bureaus go, unfortunately, we have to document that, and we'll just put notes on the file. But as far as, it still impacts the credit score, doesn't change that at all. So. Let's see, duplicate accounts. Yeah, a lot of times, a lot of the bureaus, our system's pretty smart, pretty savvy. It will merge the data together, but every once in a while, there'll be duplicate accounts. RC Willey's pretty famous for that here in town. They'll do a 60-day or a 6-month same as cash. All of a sudden, you're seeing like 3 or 4 accounts. It may help a client, but it may hurt a client, depending on what the balances are and the high credit limits. So sometimes, we'll have our clients will have us consolidate those forms as well. Okay, so let's jump in the credit score, because this is always the most confusing part, and especially to your borrowers. There's the credit score. They see this credit score, And nowadays, I don't think we realize how important it is. You know, you apply for auto insurance. This is about 18 months ago. I'm with Farmers Insurance, and they call us and say, hey, if we can run your credit, there's a chance we can save you some money. I'm like, what? So they ran my credit, and they dropped my premium, you know, almost $100 every 6 months. So that's crazy. So I mean, it's amazing how much goes into just your credit score. You know, factors in not only for just, you know, trying to, you know, buy a house, buy a car, you know, rent. You know, they're using it. They can actually decision based on, you know, how your credit score is. So going into that, there's 3 scores. But before we jump into the credit scores, basically when you talk to a credit score, you know, it ranges from 300 to 850. And on the current scores, they're called scorecards. And it's really weird. You know, we have these seminars they bring into our company every couple of years, and Fair Eyes presents them to us, and they'll show you, you know, say, you know, hey, you know, the best thing is to have 3 credit cards. But you know, you see people, you know, you'll pull somebody's credit, and they'll have 10 credit cards, and they have great credit scores. So there's so many factors that vary, and so basically, depending on how many credit cards, depending on how old they are, depending on, you know, if you have any installment loan history, depending on how many inquiries you have. So everything's weighted on these different cards, and that's why, you know, one card says, hey, if you have more than 3 credit revolving lines of credit, you know, let's go to this card. And so then, you know, everything's weighted accordingly. So that's why you'll see if a thin credit file, maybe a late, or just having, you know, a credit balance that's very close to the credit limit is going to be, you know, more detrimental to their score versus somebody that has a thick file. So we call them thick and thin files, depending on how much data is on there. So jumping into that, the 3 scores that are out there now, these are the ones that are required by Fannie and Freddie. Equifax Beacon 5.0, Experian is the FICO version 2, and then TransUnion has what's called the Classic 04. So that's down for 2004. So that's the last one, you know, that's out there. So very, very outdated. So there's more recent versions out there that just haven't had a chance to test them. Now, one thing you may read, and you may see this online, the 3 credit bureaus, you know, they all work independently with Fair Isaac. They all came together and they created what's called the Vantage score. And because they're like, look, if we all have the same information, we want to have the same score. And so they all use the same algorithm on the Vantage score. The problem is Fannie and Freddie have not adopted that yet. But so with that score, and there's, you know, banks that are using it for auto just because it's cheaper, you know, than the FICO score. But if you pull and this information is all the same, you get the exact same score, which makes sense, doesn't it? So, but yeah, that's just a little tidbit out there. All right, let's jump to, okay, the anatomy of a score. This is something you probably see online a lot. You know, past payment performance. Let me get out of the way here. Past payment performance, 35%. You know, your credit history. That's obviously the most important when it comes, you know, factoring in the score. So it's almost a 30-year score. Credit utilization, 30%. Credit history, 15%. Types of credit, 10%, and then inquiries. So let's look at the first one, the payment history. So when you talk payment history, and that's why you'll see, and this kind of goes back to the scoring. So you get the most points, you know, if there's less activity, or you get more credit for the shortest time frame. So within 0 to 6 months, that's a huge attribute of how your payment pattern is going to be. So if you have lates on credit cards or lates, within 0 to 6 months, you're going to be punished. I mean, typically it's 70 to 80 points per late. Now, once that late drops into the 7 to 23 months or past 24 months, you're not hurt as bad. And you'll even see, that'll be some of your stipulations probably for your lenders. Hey, as long as there's not a late over 24 months or whatever, because they know statistically, the lender or the borrower is going to be a lot safer. So 0 to 6 months, 7 to 23, after 24 months is kind of the break. And we talked about collections. So going back to your question there, Nate, paying collections, yeah, it does usually drop the score. Even with judgments, we'll see that once a judgment's filed, it doesn't even matter if it's satisfied. So even if you satisfy a judgment, the score is going to stay the same. So the damage is done. That's just how it shows how old the scoring, mind process is, thought process is. And these new scores, once they do get them introduced, will actually, take that into consideration, because it only makes sense, if somebody satisfies a judgment, that they should, get credit for that. So yeah, paying collections, you want to wait as long as possible.
Mike?
Yes.
I had it explained once to me, like those accounts that are negative when you go to pay them, it goes like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst account, a collection goes from like, I don't know, like a 4 that's 24 months old to a 5, so a little bit better, but then it's within 6 months, and so that's why certainly it makes you worry. It's recent activity, and a paid judgment is still horrible compared to an account that's on time. Is that?
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah,
how
it's
you
just
do
the way
it.
the scores are calculated. And I'm going to show you some tools here at the end that you can go in and simulate all this, and you'll see when you satisfy judgments, it just doesn't factor in. And that's just the way the scoring models are designed. Even though to you and I it makes sense. It's like, hey, if somebody pays a debt, then things obviously must be moving better for them, less risky, but it's just the way the scores are calculated. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, revolving balances. This is probably the next common factor here. And honestly, when you're viewing the credit bureaus, pull up on a daily basis, and you're looking at the credit scores, you'll notice there's 4 factors below there. The top 2 are usually the 2 you really need to address to try and help influence the score. And I would tell you 9 times out of 10, proportion to revolving balance will be a code that pops up there, and because it's just a third of your score is impacted there. So it shows how these revolving balances impact the score. 100%, there's these different buckets. So 100% score utilization, you have a $10,000 credit limit, you're at $9,500, you're getting penalized. So you're not getting as much credit for having that card. It goes back to those 10 scorecards. So you'll see, paying it down to 75%, 50%, 30%. Usually 30% is if you were to look at a graph, 30% you're going to get the most improvement as far as paying and having that type of balance, and then down to 10% or 1%. Now many times too, you never really want 0. You never want just credit cards just always has 0 balance from not utilizing it. If you can have it to where you just have certain cards where you maybe charge a little gas on them every once in a while, just to where it keeps them going, but it's still within the 1% bucket, 1% threshold, that's where you're going to get the most points. That's from a scoring standpoint. And you'll notice some of our simulations, the tools we'll go through, they'll have a $7,000 balance on their Capital One card, and you would think it would say pay to 0. It'll say, pay it down to $85 or pay it down to $65. So it doesn't say to pay it off. And I've seen where a borrower says, I'm just going to pay it off. They didn't follow the steps of the analyzation tools, and they're supposed to get 20 points, and they only got 12. But if they would have left a little balance on there, it's like the system wants to see just a little bit of activity on there. It's kind of weird. Yes?
How does it go when increasing credit lines? If they were to increase their credit line so they now have more available, how does that work?
That's a great question. Okay, so raising the credit line is always a great option. It's a double-edged sword though, because many of the financial institutions will only raise it if they can pull your credit. They just want to take a peek and make sure, hey, is this a smart risk for us? So they'll pull credit, so you're taking the hit on the inquiry. But if you can honestly have 2 or 3 inquiries a month. It's not bad. But you start getting a bunch of them, then they start, and you're not and the system looks, hey, is there new inquiries but no new accounts? It's almost saying, why are they having all the inquiries but not creating the account? So if you do increase the line of the balance or the available credit, then it's kind of like doing the same thing as paying it down, but you would have the hit for the inquiry.